the Minister for Transport, the Minister for Health. We've sat with the Transporters Association, led by Ms. Ireri, who represents them as a CEO, and Foreign Affairs. But indeed, even after having reported, I think the committee needs to go further and deeper in this issue. We had already agreed, and in fact, it is part of the report that already the Senate has recommended, that, Madam Speaker, the drivers requested in the Truck Transporters Association to have their testing ahead of their journey and a certificate issued for those who are not positive. ESC guidelines, which need to be followed up in terms of honoring these certificates across countries. Because as at the time when we were doing this report, Chairman Committee, we had even 50 Kenyan truck drivers quarantined in Rwanda. We had others mandatory quarantined in Uganda. Our neighbors have not been treating us well when it comes to this, Madam Speaker. We agreed to do mandatory testing at all points of entry, sensitization of drivers to adhere to these protocols. And Madam Speaker, on top of that issue, because as of today I can tell you, because we are talking with these truckers, the traffic there is around 42 kilometers. Because the number of people even testing are very few. They need to increase the staff and the doctors who are there testing and taking samples from these drivers. We have governors who decided to be creative, in a very improper way. If you look at what the governor of Machakos is purporting to do, Madam Speaker, it is really unfortunate. They are removing number plates from trucks that stop in Machakos County. It does not own that county. And we agreed with the Ministry of Interior that the regional commissioner, the county commissioner should make sure the governor of Machakos stops harassing truck drivers, because they have to, at some point, stop during their journey, Madam Speaker. So I'll really impress upon the chair to take on some of the recommendations we have, and of course, because he is the substantive committee, then to go much deeper. Because the other committee, of course, can't focus on just one area of transport or a different area. We've made our preliminary findings, but please, Chair, there's a lot that needs to be done. Our drivers are suffering. Normally, they have even additional staff who come to help them at the weigh bridges, because if you have luggage, for instance, and you've reached Naivasha and the cargo moves, the axle balancing in terms of the weight, you need somebody to help you spread it. And they've been denied even that opportunity, Madam Speaker. So there's a lot, but I'm sure the chairman is up to the task. He is very efficient, and we've seen him before, Senator Omatangi, rising up to the occasion. So please, we will hand over what we've already found, and I wish you the best, because the economy is suffering, our drivers are suffering, they're being harassed, they're even being stigmatized, Madam Speaker. When local governors are acting like drivers are lepers, or they have leprosy, Madam Speaker, it is not right. It is completely wrong. We need to defend our people, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Msuruve.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to add my voice to this statement. I want to congratulate Senator Senator Bungoma for coming up with this statement. And indeed, truck drivers are really suffering, and there's need for us to realize that they also have rights. They are also just like anybody else. They are making a living, and they need to be cushioned. So there's need to see to it that even during the snarl-up, there's provision of water, there's provision of soap, there's provision of food, so that they are also being cushioned. And I want to say also that these truck drivers also have primary needs, just like anybody else. They would like to go to the toilet, they'd like to bathe, they'd like to wash themselves. So where do they do this? So there's need also to realize that they are also social beings. In as much as they're staying long on the jam, the snarl-up, there's a danger of them being, social to the people around there. And there's also a danger of the coronavirus increasing with regard to, the human social interaction. So there's need for the committee to ensure that it is doing something to ensure that these truck drivers are being cushioned. And then their plight needs to be taken seriously, because they're just like anybody else. As we are cushioning others, let us also cushion them. They need to be heard as well. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
Senator Minority Leader, Senator Rengo.
Madam Speaker, I thank the distinguished senator from Bungoma for bringing this question. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, we normally try to pride ourselves of the fact that Uganda is our biggest trading partner. Now, when you look at what is happening at the border between Uganda and Kenya, you wonder whether that trade is going on at all. Because I have had instances when I've gone to Malaba, and you have 40, 50 kilometers of the biggest congestion you could ever see on a public highway. And that major highway does not only connect Kenya to Uganda, it connects us to northern parts of Uganda and into southern Sudan, to Ethiopia, to DRC, to Rwanda, to Burundi, and northern Zambia. And if you look at the other routes between Kampala and Nairobi, through the border between Kenya and Uganda, that is Busia. Equally there's another big logjam. But the main Trans-African highway, and when they're talking about building a land bridge between the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic, this road between Nairobi to Eldoret to Bungoma, Kandui, Malava into Uganda is so critical. So something needs to be done. I don't think this is the first time the distinguished senator from Bungoma has brought this question or this matter before the Senate or even before the National Assembly when we were there. And now the health hazards compounds the problem. The welfare of truck drivers, passengers, compounds the problem. And now there is something else which has happened. One of the oldest bridges in the western part of Kenya, that is in between Ugenya and Ugunja constituency. One of the oldest bridges built before the Second World War. During the recent floods, it was brought down so that between the main district headquarters in Ugenya and in Ugunja, there's no communication, no traffic. People have got to go on roundabout way. So what it means is that our borders are getting congested, and with the health problems that we have, the pandemic of COVID, the people of the region have to bear the consequences of this big problem. Madam Speaker, I will not repeat the issues that have been brought about in relation to social amenities and sanitation. But I just want to emphasize, even from purely an economic point of view, that highway that goes through Bungoma, Kandui to Malava is shameful to continue to have that type of congestion. It calls for a national emergency solution. Because if we really, really pride ourselves that Uganda is our biggest trading partner, something like that should not happen. And the consequence of it is that some of the countries in that region are now looking to Tanzania as an alternative route. And you may not imagine it. It may be easier in the future for goods in northern part of Uganda to go through Ethiopia into Djibouti. Yeah, because of the costs and related difficulties. So it's a matter, if it's not addressed, quickly, and efforts put in place so that people who use this highway, including truck drivers, which have been emphasizing, when they have to stop for those number of days, there are facilities and amenities which can answer to their other needs, social needs, and health and welfare requirements. So, Madam Speaker, I hope that when the chairman of this committee, Mr. Honorable Matangi, when you sit with the committee, I urge you to also to address this old bridge that connects to Busia, and in fact from Busia there's an onward route to Malava. So now that it is congested, Malava is congested, and there's no access to Busia because of this road. Bungoma, Kandui, Malava is going to get even more congested In fact, Madam Speaker, this morning, there was a demonstration at that bridge, a huge demonstration, and the police had to be called in. So we need a very quick solution to this problem. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator for Migori, Senator Ochilo Ayako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this matter is affecting Migori very seriously. All the COVID cases that have been reported in Migori is through Hispania border, and the people who have been blamed or it has been attributed to are the truckers. Madam Speaker, why Migori is unique? In the entire Migori, the entire Homa Bay, and to a large extent Kisii and Nyamira, there is no testing for COVID. All this is done in Kisumu. There are truck drivers who have to come into Kenya through Hispania, through a place called Kopanga or Ntimaru, and all these truck drivers have to await their results from Kisumu. You know, the distance between Migori and Kisumu is 196 kilometers. There are no amenities for these drivers. There is a lot of suffering. My understanding of this problem, it is very serious in Busia, but it's a problem that is affecting the entire nation, all the entry points. There are no preparations for quickly testing the drivers and allowing them to enter or exit Kenya. I want to ask the committee responsible for this, together with the CS who is expected to respond to this, to treat this as a siege that is engulfing our entire nation and engulfing the entire economy. If nothing is done about Busia, about Migori, about Lungalunga, about Mandera, and about all these other places, I think we are going to be an economy under siege. But particularly for Migori, we would like all these testing facilities to be brought to the border. You cannot put those trackers in Migori, then you send a test for 5 days as they wait in places that do not have other facilities. You are posing a risk or causing the people of Busia to be at risk of COVID, the people of Migori, the people of Lungalunga, the people of Mandera. So if we really want to ensure we are safe and also efficient, we really need to make this matter a matter of priority and to be business friendly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Now, honorable members from... Yes, Senator Wetangula.
Madam Speaker, if you can allow me, before the chairman tells us what he wants to do, the point raised by the distinguished senator from Mombasa about our neighbors distrusting or rejecting or questioning the authenticity and accuracy of our tests that the drivers carry. Under the East African Protocol, Madam Speaker, we have a protocol and a sectoral issue on health and on all other issues. Can the chairman of the committee, together with the chairman of the ad hoc committee, engage the government of the Republic of Kenya to ensure that if the truckers are going to Uganda, they get Ugandan medical personnel to join Kenyans in testing the drivers so that there are no questions about the acceptability of the results when they enter Uganda. Same applying to Tanzania and then other neighboring countries that we are trading with, so that we can be able to assist these drivers. And I'm sure this can be done because the protocol for health in the East African community enjoins all the countries to work together in dealing with matters of health at whatever level, in any way they wish, whenever there is a need to do so. And there can't be any better need than this, Madam Speaker.
Yes, Senator Sakaja.
Just allow me to inform the chair. Madam Speaker, this matter is extremely important, and even as we speak, the Transporters Association have sent me a document that I forwarded to the chair. Yesterday they held a meeting with authorities from both sides. If you look at your WhatsApp, I've sent it. And the drivers, as Senator Orengo, the leader of minority, has said, actually, they're striking now. And they said that one, their grievances included, of course, stigmatization and harassment in Uganda, insecurity in Uganda, multiple testing for COVID in Kenya and Uganda, lack of sanitary facilities and areas of rest, and most of these areas are apart. And they are saying what they agreed to do, and at least this will help the chair to really follow it up quickly, is to accept certificates from either countries, which is what Senator Wetangula is saying. 2, to improve the security for diversion for drivers in both countries. You know, sometimes they're even asking the drivers to leave the truck and to give it to somebody else within the next country, which, you know, cannot work. Madam Speaker, to have the test results in 6 hours, and we've seen those mobile kits. It is working in the Taveta Olili border. It is now going towards the side of Namanga. We need it in Uganda. And the infrastructure, the parking area, Senator Wetangula knows it, and even the chair, they've been there, to be improved. And finally, to open for communication. They have agreed, both authorities of Kenya and Uganda, to open a WhatsApp group with the Truckers Association so that these quick issues have been done. And I'm also informed, Madam Speaker, that this behavior, this bad behavior of the governor of Machakos, where each truck they have to pay 11,200 to get their number plates once they have been removed. 11,200. And I've seen those receipts. It is illegal. That now, the governor who was in Gishu has also started doing the same thing. That now in Eldoret, they are removing those numbers and charging. By the time a truck has left Mombasa going to, how many times will they be charged, Madam Speaker? So it's very urgent. Chairman, kazi kwako.
Honorable Senators, I think I want to give the chair to respond, but chair, looking at the gravity, the issues that have been raised here, and even what we are watching on television, I don't know if you can shorten the period of 2 weeks, chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I acknowledge and I hear my colleagues, and I want to specifically thank Senator Wetangula for that statement. Senator Wetangula has been very consistent on this matter. And indeed, the time when we visited Malaba the first time, he sacrificed his entire day. We were with him from very early afternoon when he arrived until very late in the evening. I think we parted when it was raining in the night. For him to go back and for us to come back to Nairobi, Madam Speaker. And one of the, just for the information of the House, one of the most shameful things or matters on this matter is the first time when we had gone there, it is because of something that could be very easily resolved by the government. It was just about a 60-meter loop where the government had paid more than almost $1 billion in a contract, and the entire contract is finalized, and only a 60-meter loop costing less than 58 million was remaining for the last, I don't know how many years, unfinished, Madam Speaker. And that was the reason why this jam was continued to accumulate at Malaba. Recently, Madam Speaker, for information of the House, my committee posed this question to the Cabinet Secretary when he appeared on other matters, and he confirmed that they have undertaken the repairs. We have done our due diligence. I think that is not yet still complete. And I want to give the House assurance, alongside all the other questions that have been asked as supplementary questions by the senators, the minority leader. And minority leader, I also want to confirm that during that visit when we went with Senator Wetangula, we looked at that bridge that has been mentioned by Senator Orengo. And indeed, we asked the same questions. It appeared to us that the contractor who had been given that job simply did not have the capacity to do work on that bridge. I want to assure members that we shall take this matter very, very seriously. I want to thank Senator Sakaja for the information that he's given us as a fast track towards resolving this matter. Madam Speaker, some times back, the Office of the Speaker and House leadership engaged cabinet secretaries on the question of invitation and eventually summoning of cabinet secretaries, and they mutually agreed that the safe period for us to invite a cabinet secretary for them to receive the correspondence has got to be at least within those 14 days. Other than directed by the Speaker from the chair, Madam Speaker, if you so direct, then I'm certain that the Office of the Clerk should oblige that this is a very, very urgent matter. I also agree, Madam Speaker, that all those truck drivers who are around all those border points cannot just hang around until 14 days are over for us to give a resolution. So, Madam Speaker, if you so direct, I'm sure that it will be honored by the Office of the Clerk. We are ready to meet the Cabinet Secretary, even tomorrow. We are ready to take action and go there with the senators as fast as possible. And so with your direction, Madam Speaker, we shall take up this matter. We shall ensure that the right thing is done, because we have sometimes people who have been given responsibility in offices of government who sit there just finally to enjoy themselves and feel like they have arrived, so to say, while Kenyans are suffering. We shall take this to the bottom, Madam Speaker, so please give us your backing by giving the directive. Then the Office of the Clerk should oblige and give us at least within 7 days. We should have the Cabinet Secretary responding to this matter and appearing before this House to deal with that matter, and then we'll take the necessary action. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I think we are under a very tight situation. We know COVID is here with us. The more we drag some of these issues, the more dangerous it is for everybody, and the spread is of the virus. So we must act at times. We must be forced to go beyond the limits that we ourselves have set to make sure that we give the people of Kenya better services. So I direct that within 1 week, we should be able to get the response from the ministry. So directed. Honorable Senator, it's also good to notify that our time is running. We are almost at 4 o'clock. We still have more statements. So I would like to request that if you must make a statement or a comment, kindly make it very, very brief so that we take care of all the statements. Now, the next statement is by Senator Folamu. I don't see him here, so we defer that. And the next one is Senator Mary Senator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me a chance to raise this very important statement on the issue of food security. Madam Speaker, as you are aware, that our supermarket shelves and our food stalls are almost empty, and therefore a need for us to really help farmers to be able to produce. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries concerning efficacy, safety, and affordability of livestock vaccines and pesticides and herbicides. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state measures put in place by the government to ensure constant and adequate supply of safe and effective livestock vaccines, pesticides, and herbicides for use by farmers. 2, explain the control mechanisms deployed by the government to monitor safety and efficacy of livestock vaccines and pesticides and herbicides in the market to ensure farmers are not exposed to losses through use of such vaccines, pesticides, and herbicides. 3, state plans put in place to ensure livestock vaccines, pesticides, and herbicides are not sold at prohibitive prices by manufacturers and retailers. Finally, state whether tax imposed on essential livestock vaccines, pesticides, and herbicides can be reduced in order to support agriculture and production in the country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, that statement, I don't see interest. Or Senator Uchila Yako, please be brief.
I just want to say I'm a member of the Agriculture Committee, and this statement is a very important statement. I want to assure the House that the issue of health and safety is the topmost agenda that we have globally. COVID has awakened us to the need to be healthy and the need to do things in a sustainable way. It's an important statement. If we are given 2 weeks, we should be able to come up with a good report that, in our view, would satisfy the House and also satisfy the member who has sought this statement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Musurube.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now, I want to support this statement, and it is a statement that should be taken with speed, because I've realized, Honorable Speaker, that there are some farmers who are, of course, hands-on on the job, but they lack that awareness of, in a situation where the livestock is infested, they don't know how to treat, or even in terms of even those who keep hens. They have problems. If one gets sick, then the rest also become sick and they end up dying. We need to see how to help our farmers, encourage our farmers, so that even if they're keeping livestock, they know what to do in the event that one of it gets sick. Even those who keep hens, they should also be enlightened on what to do. So this is something that the county government actually needs to take up as a responsibility in order to ensure that farmers are encouraged in the endeavor. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Sir, Honorable Senator, I think 2 weeks is adequate for that. So, Mr. Senator Chilayako, I think I saw the chair also was here, but now that you're here, Senator, no, it's not in. So please take it up, and the communication is 2 weeks. Next statement is by Senator Fonandi Sherargei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Request for statement on the issue of redesigning and expansion of Kengwal Bridge along Eldoret Kapsabet Highway by Kenya National Highway Authority. Madam Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek statement from the Standing Committee on Transport on the issue of redesigning and expansion of Kengwal Bridge along Eldoret Kapsabet Highway. In the statement 1, the committee should state the reasons as to why it has taken too long for Kenya to renovate and expand Kengwal Bridge despite having access and found it to be dangerous. Second, state the status of redesigning and expansion of Kapsabet Eldoret Highway, Kapsabet Chavakali Road, Kapsabet Nandils, Chemelil, and Awasi, as they are narrow and renovations are necessary, but nothing has been done, despite various requests and assurance by Kenya on the same. Madam Speaker, the third one, state the reason as to why Kenya has not built an alternative route at Kengwal Bridge for traffic and people to use in case of an overflow, which occurs frequently, causing people going to Kapsabet, to Kisumu, to Javakali in Western and Nyanza, to use a longer route of Keses, Lesos Road. And Madam Speaker, it has to note by the chair, although he has, I think he's still there, that the recent rains did not make anything better. The Kengwal Bridge became overflowed, and most of the vehicles could not access Kisumu, your county, nor access Javakali. Finally, Madam Speaker, outline the measures, if any, that the Ministry of Roads has taken to come up with a long-lasting solution to this perennial problem of overflowing bridge at Kengwal and expansion of the said roads, considering that the bridge is dangerous not only to users but also to the community around that place. And Madam Speaker, just a comment information to the chair, when there is an overflow of that bridge, normally there are many young women, people living with disability, and the youth who always have their business of planting trees. So you can imagine with the COVID pandemic and these small businesses that are run by young people, whenever there is an overflow and because of poor designing of that bridge, they normally lose their trees and also lose their source of income. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
I don't know if there's a member of the Committee of Transport.
Madam Speaker, the chair is still here.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
So that...
Yes, Madam Speaker, I want to commit that we will take up the matter. I will deal with it alongside the directions that you gave earlier. Because when the Cabinet Secretary appears before this House, he can come and address all the issues at the same time. So, Madam Speaker, we are going to lump the issues together, clearly illustrate them, and they will be answered to by the Cabinet Secretary within the time that this House has directed that he needs to appear here to inform members on those issues, Madam Speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair. So that takes care of the statements that we have. The last one is the standing committee. Senator Faki.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 47-1 to make a statement on the matter of national concern, namely the recent shooting down of a Kenyan aircraft operating in Somalia, allegedly by members of the Ethiopian Armed Forces. Madam Speaker, on the 4th of May 2020, a Kenyan aircraft, an Embraer 120 registration number 55AXO, owned by African Express Airlines, was landing at Bardale District airstrip in the Bay region of Somalia when it was hit by Ethiopian troops on the ground. The aircraft was completely destroyed, killing all 6 people who were on board, including the pilot, Captain Hassan Bulhan, First Officer Mabruk Islam Sharman, Omar Abdallah Jamal, a trainee first officer, Charles Singanga, and 2 other passengers of Somali origin. The plane was delivering COVID-19 humanitarian supplies to the Bardale district and was hit upon landing at the airstrip. Madam Speaker, the Ethiopian Armed Forces have admitted that its forces shot the aircraft after it had landed at the airstrip. This is not the first time a similar incident has occurred. Madam Speaker, another aircraft was on 25th of May, that was yesterday, shot at the Kwansandare Bay, at Kwansandare airstrip, Bay region of Somalia, by the same Ethiopian Armed Forces. Fortunately, no fatalities were reported in this second incident. Madam Speaker, in the incident of 4th of May 2020, the country lost 4 highly qualified young men who had just started their careers. Captain Mabruk Islam Sharman has left a young family of a widow and 3 children. Omar Abdallah Jamal was also a young man with a lot of ambition, and his death has robbed his family of a treasured asset. While Captain Hussein, who was the pilot, was also the son of Captain Musa Bulhan, the owner of African Express Airlines and a prominent investor in the aviation industry in Kenya. The family looked at the younger Hussein to take over the reins at the company. All these young lives were needlessly cut short by a reckless Ethiopian soldier. At the time of the shooting, Somali administration officials had already arrived at the airstrip to receive the medical supplies, and one wonders why the soldiers were in a hurry to shoot an aircraft that had already landed at the airstrip. Madam Speaker, it is very painful for the families of the 4 Kenyans who had lost children in whom they had made a great investment to educate and train. Training a pilot takes time and a lot of resources and sacrifice. For a soldier to aim his gun on the aircraft and shoot is, to say the least, very reckless and inhuman. This was a civilian aircraft, as was clearly visible, and had shown no sign of any threat to the Ethiopians. As a nation, we need to condemn this reckless behavior, which, unless some action is taken, is bound to be repeated. Madam Speaker, in view of the fact that the shooting resulted in the deaths of 4 Kenyans, I take this opportunity to appeal to the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations to take up the matter with a view to ensuring that an independent and impartial investigation of this heinous act is carried out, and that prompt and full compensation is accorded to the families and the African Express Airlines for the loss that they have suffered. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Musareva.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, for the opportunity. I want to support this statement from Senator Faki, and I want to condole with the families of those who passed on during this incident. It is really a painful incident that the soldiers just got trigger happy and they went shooting, and they ended up shooting very innocent people. There's need to really ensure that we are condoling with these families, especially the pilots, the Kenyans who died, during this incident. They have families, they have children, and there's need to step in and see how we can support them, especially during this very, very difficult moment. And it should not only be during this difficult moment. Remember some of these these Kenyans who died, they have children. Those children will be orphaned, and they will not have a way of being supported to go to school and all that. So they're going to have that pain of losing a parent for a very long time. So there's need to ensure that the children of those who are dead, like the young widow with a child who has remained, this child should be educated up to the level where his brain can actually take him. So it is my prayer that the committee that is going to look into this issue will see to it that there is a full compensation, and the compensation should be fair, because we cannot actually bring back life, but we can help the remaining family endure the pain but still survive, because they have to press on, move on, until a time when God will decide to take them also to himself. Thank you, Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to support this motion, this statement.
Senator Sherargei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I think it was very unfortunate that that incident had to happen, and that the families have lost their loved one, and it is good the chair of National Defense and Foreign Relations is here, or national security, is that this is an issue between the country and the Kenyan country, the Ethiopia and Somalia. These are friendly nations that have a long history of good diplomatic ties. And I think as a country, we want to know the answers. This is an act of provocation, but because these are an act of friendly countries, I think these are something that can be resolved at the highest level of government, so that it could not look like there is an agenda of an act of provocation against this country. Because if today we allow that plane to be shot down by these troops in that territory, it means this could provoke even other serious issues that we have. And we know Kenya is one of the beacon of hopes in the Horn of Africa. It has given even forces to the Amazon. Kenya has been active in bringing peace across this region. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I think this matter must be addressed. I have seen, when it was first reported, I have not seen any senior government official coming to even tell the country what really happened. There was an issue that was being raised that this matter will be resolved, that this matter will be communicated. But up to now, the Kenyan government, the Ethiopian, also the Somalian government has not come out to tell the world and the country that what really happened, because that thing cannot be swept. It is a very serious matter that should not be allowed, and it might create even further diplomatic differences in the near future if such issues that have happened. And my condolences to the families that lost their loved one over that incident, and we wish that even on that even as the Foreign Relations Committee investigates, Madam Speaker, those families must be compensated. You have heard that they have a young family, then the only way those people who caused that incident, be it the Ethiopian troops, be it the Somali, the Kenyan government and those governments must be able to compensate the family for the loss of their loved ones. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Finally, Senator Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important statement, as I also congratulate and thank Senator who has brought this statement to the House. Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that during this season of COVID, which is already affecting everybody and every country, we are also affected by these happenings now. Losing a loved one in a plane crash is a sad thing, and it is even worse when you know that the plane has, somebody has played a part in doing that. So I want to request or plead with the government to give this the attention it deserves, as I also send my condolences to the affected families. Madam Speaker, we know that many have been widowed, children have been orphaned, and today they are mourning, and they may not even know what the future holds for them. So it is high time for us to stand with them, pray with them, and also for the government to take the proper attention
or give the proper attention that this deserves. Madam Speaker, we need to demand for proper explanation because the Ethiopian government, they have already admitted that they have played a part in that. So we need to know why that has happened, and our government should stand firm and see how best we can handle this. I pray for the families that are affected and pray that this will not happen again. So I support the statement. Thank you.
So, honorable members, that statement stands committed to the relevant committee for security. Next is Chair for Delegated Legislation, Senator Omugeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to make a statement pursuant to Standing Order 51-1A of our Senate Standing Orders. Madam Speaker, Standing Order 51-1A of the Senate Standing Orders provides that a committee chairperson may make a statement relating to a matter for which the committee is responsible in fulfillment of provisions of the said standing orders. I wish to make a statement regarding some of the statutory instruments referred to the Committee of Delegated Legislation on the 19th of May, 2020. Madam Speaker, on 19th May 2020, during the morning sitting of the Senate Majority Leader tabled the following statutory instruments which were referred to the Committee on Delegated.
as well as in the manner in which we have handled and managed the epidemic. Due credit in this effort goes to our very able, committed healthcare workers, to all groups, individuals, and corporate entities who have tirelessly, day and night, worked to ensure that we contain the spread of the disease. All these efforts have not been in vain, and we do not take them for granted. They are for the safety and well-being of our population and loved ones. Our future generations will truly be indebted to us. However, all these gains can very easily be eroded if we do not remain focused and strictly observe the various containment measures. On this matter, we have noted a disturbing behavior and a dangerous one at that. This pertains to persons giving false contacts during targeted testing. We have talked about this in the last two briefings, and I want to reiterate that it is important to provide accurate information, because it is only through this that contact tracing is possible. Providing wrong information means that such individuals are continuing to spread the virus to their loved ones, their friends, and to the community. We are glad, though, that the majority of our people have responded to our call to come forward for testing. This is commendable, and we continue to appeal to all Kenyans to come out and get tested. As we have always stated, the true picture of this disease in our country will only be known through the tests we are currently conducting. We have also noted that some of our people have been shy to present themselves for testing for fear of the treatment cost. The position of government on this matter is clear. For avoidance of doubt, let me restate once more. The cost of testing, quarantine, and treatment in a government facility will be fully met by government. Any information to the contrary is false and is aimed at misleading Kenyans. I'm therefore appealing to all to come forward and be tested. Wenzangu wa Kenya, nataka kuwaeleza ya kwamba hii shughuli ya testing na kupelekwa kwenye quarantine au kwenye hospitali kutibiwa ukiwa COVID positive, gharama hiyo italipwa na serikali. Kwa hivyo hakuna haja kuogopa ya kwamba utaingia gharama kubwa ukipatikana uwe COVID positive. Hakuna kitu ya kuogopa, mujitoe, ogope kuja mbele, kujitoa kupimwa. With regard to our COVID-19 situation in the country today, we have tested 2,293 samples, out of which 62 people have tested positive for COVID-19. This now brings to 1,348 the number of those who have so far tested positive, and the total number tested so far stands at 64,264. Out of these positives, 59 are Kenyans and 3 are foreign nationals. In terms of gender, 45 are male, while 17 are female. Age-wise, range from between 6 years for the youngest and 64 years for the oldest. The positives are spread in the counties as follows: Nairobi with 23, Mombasa with 16, Kwale 8, Kiambu 6, Kajiado 6, and Kitui 3. The cases are distributed in the sub-counties as follows. In Nairobi, Umoja at 6 cases, Kibra 6, Isli 3, Dagoretti North 2, Langata 2, Westlands 2, Starehe and Embakasi East, each 1 case. In Mombasa, the cases are from Changamwe 9, Nyali 3, and Mvita 1. In Kwale, the cases are from Msambweni 4 and Lunga Lunga 4. In Kiambu, the 6 cases are from Lari 5 and Ruiru 1, while in Kajiado, the cases are from Kajiado Central 4 and Kajiado East 1. The 3 cases from Kitui are from Miambani in Kitui Rural. We are glad to inform you that we have, as of today, discharged another 3 patients who have recovered from the disease, bringing the total number of those who have recovered to 405. We thank our healthcare workers for the good job done. Thank you. Allow me now, you can see today we are joined at this press statement by CS Macharia of Transport and CS Aden of East African Cooperation. And they are both here to make some statements to the media. Let me invite CS Macharia now to make his statement.
Thank you very much, CS Rashid. I'm here specifically to talk about the transport corridors which we have, and also the border points. Because, as you know, in terms of trade and in terms of the transmission or containment of this virus, our transport corridors are very, very, very important. And with that also comes the issue about transport logistics. And so we have made a lot of progress in terms of collaborating with our partners on the key entry points, Many of you knew recently that there was an issue which we had at Namanga, whereby the trucks, the cargo trucks from Tanzania side were not coming through, and vice versa. And the reason was because there was a bit of disparity until last week with regard to the testing protocols. And so last week, on Friday, the 22nd of May, myself, in fact, together with CS Rashid, and other senior government officers, including 3 regional coordinators, regional coordinator of the coast, regional coordinator of Nyanza, and regional coordinator of Rift Valley. We went Rift Valley. We went to Namanga to meet our counterparts, to meet the 5 regional commissioners on the side of Tanzania, and by the end of the day, the Minister for Transport. We had very fruitful discussions and very good outcome, because by the end of the day we signed an MOU confirming that we had agreed on the testing protocols. For us as a country, we insisted that anybody coming through our borders had to be tested using the agreed international WHO standards, which is what they call the PCR protocols. And so that was agreed, and that's why from last week on Friday, the trucks carrying cargo, essential services, started flowing through the border with Tanzania. Many of you now, in particular Malaba, where we have a very long queue of trucks. This is not because of differences. We've been full of trucks. This is not because of differences of testing protocols between us and Uganda, because we've been following the same protocols in terms of medical process of testing the virus. But it was because, when I say inside, it's only a few, about 3 truck drivers who went and blocked the entry to the border, thereby creating a queue of up to 50 kilometers at the Malaba border. This, we said, is unacceptable, and today, as government, we have put measures in place to open the border, and we have told those people who are causing problems that you do not have to drive towards the border. If you feel you have grievances in terms of you entering Uganda, then don't leave your point of departure. Don't collect cargo in Mombasa, don't collect cargo in Nairobi, heading to the border only for you to go there and cause confusion. That we said we will not accept, and that's why we have identified, narrowed down the people who are causing these problems, and that matter is being dealt with as we are speaking. As you know, Uganda, through Malaba, is the entry point to the Great Lakes. And the Great Lakes, they account for about 30% of all the cargo which come through the port of Mombasa. And so we cannot be having all these investments which help in our development, and then we have a few individuals causing trouble. What we have said before any truck driver leaves their point of departure, they must get the COVID-free certificate, the COVID-19-free certificate, 48 hours before commencement of the journey. With that, upon getting to the border, you don't have to wait. It will be an express way. And we have engaged our colleagues, and my colleague Aden Mohammed, who is the EAC minister, will be talking about that, to make sure that we have seamless interaction with our partners across East Africa. We like to keep our corridors open, because trade is what will bring development to our country. And so let me take this opportunity to invite my colleague, Aden Mohammed, to discuss about the broader issues about East African cooperation.
Thank you very much, Waziri and colleagues. I think the issue of the challenge that we have in Malaba border is something that is probably one of the most immediate and serious issues that we are dealing with as government. As you know, our trade within the East African community remains a critical aspect of our economy's success story. The Mombasa port serves the whole of the region beyond Uganda into Southern Sudan and DRC, and the importance of Malaba-Busia border is quite critical for us. It is already bad enough as a result of Corona for us to have experienced the delays that we suffer on the corridor, because if you think about it, pre-Corona days, it would ordinarily take 3 days for a driver to drive from the port of Mombasa to Kampala and back. And as an introduction of the tests and COVID issues came up, that time doubled. And you can imagine the amount of delays and the economic consequence of that has been quite serious. Now, as if that is not enough, then we have had issues that have developed, largely a creation of our own truck drivers that has caused a 50-kilometer long delay of trucks that is now becoming a security threat. And as my colleague C.S. Macharia mentioned, we took a decision as government this morning to really exercise all that is within our means to make sure that that corridor is cleared. And I'm pleased to say that whilst we have been here, the 4 trucks that have been blocking the entry into the Uganda side of the border have now been cleared, and clearances and movements of people, of trucks, have already started moving. We expect that exercise to take probably 4 to 5 days to clear. As that exercise is going, we have asked our colleagues, all the stakeholders at the port, at the border port of Malaba, to work 24 hours, whether it's immigration, port health, revenue authority, and our security colleagues, to make sure that this clearance starts now and we get this backlog behind. My colleague C.S. Kagwe has made it extremely clear that all our truck drivers must get 48 hours before they start their journey the tests and the necessary certificate, which is being respected by our colleagues on the Uganda side. And we are aware that there have been issues raised by our truck drivers, especially once they cross onto the Uganda side of the border. We have had our Kema Kilonzo, who drove from Kampala to the port of Malaba yesterday to actually inspect some of the stop points that have been the main cause of concerns for our drivers, where complaints about lack of adequate facilities and improper sanitation facilities have been reported. Of course, we will not expect first-class facilities. It is challenging times, but it is not as bad as people have described, and that have caused the blockages that we have seen. We've also had complaints from our truck drivers that testing that is being done at the border point by Ugandan authorities is painful, and that the necessary swabs that are being done is quite painful. We urge our truck drivers to do tests in Kenya. Once you have the certificate, you don't have to be subjected through that painful exercise that you are complaining about. So it is a time to actually exercise patience on everybody's side. This is an unusual time. People's emotions can run high. But what I think is not acceptable is to block the entry point of Uganda through the vehicles that we get from Mombasa entering into Uganda through the port of Malaba. That is something that will not be accepted. Whilst we endeavor to deal with the grievances and issues that have been highlighted by the drivers, all arms of government are collaborating. Port of Busia, which is an alternative route for people to use. We also have the area through the border of Loakaka, where vehicles coming from Uganda have also been using to come back as a way of easing some of this congestion. And so I think unlike some of the issues that we've had to deal with before, which was as a result of lack of understanding and having a common view by EAC member states, this issue of Malaba is a unique one in that it was a creation of our own people who decided to block the road so that their grievances are being heard. And we will work jointly with them, and we just urge everybody to be patient and make sure that we act within the law and what is responsible as we all try and overcome this issue of corona pandemic. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
COVID-19 curve in the country for the next 30 days. My second question is, you've talked about crafty Kenyans who are giving wrong contact information. So far, how many Kenyans gave wrong contact information who turned negative that you are still tracing where they are despite their positive status? And my last question is from Changamwe. We have information that a positive patient has escaped the hands of the government. How far is the chase of that positive patient, if you are aware of the same? Thank you.
Please keep it short, okay? Yes, thank you. My question is to Dr. Patrick Amoth. To Dr. Patrick Amoth, in regard to Leto's question, you are depending on a modeling where you said that 10,000 cases will be recorded by the end of April, and now you say the peak will be in September, where we will start recording 200 cases daily. What sufficient data are you using, and how is it underpinning your modeling in terms of the projections? And to the second question, the CS Mohammed and CS Masharia, you have mentioned the WHO standards in terms of the testing done in Tanzania and in Uganda. What measure are you using to depend on the testing capacities of the two countries when one country is not adhering to the World Health Organization guidelines, and then in Uganda there is largely media censorship where people are struggling to see, hear, and read what the Ugandan authorities are saying? So what is the gauge and the measure of the numbers coming out of these two countries?
Purity Museo from KBC. My first question is how you're able to tell whether the cases of COVID-19 are increasing, given that every single day you are doing different number of samples. For instance, today we had over 2,063 people tested positive. Yesterday we tested 1,000 and something, and 22 tested positive. So how are you able to tell Kenyans that because we have these samples taken, is there a way we can have a constant samples tested in a day so that we are able to know whether the numbers are increasing or not? And then number two, you talked about the government offering free testing, quarantine, and treatment for COVID-19 patients. But today, there are two patients at KU referral facility who to go home, but one has a bill of 136,000, the other one going to commence for these patients.
My name is Graham Kajina. My question is about the at the WHO on suspension of the chloroquine. Stop the clinical trials for the drug.
wanted to ask, my first question is, are we truly prepared to lift the lockdown as a country? Whereas the Ministry of Health has complained in the past that there are issues of indiscipline amongst Kenyans, with some of them using crafty methods to cross, different border points and even attending church services which are banned by the government. My second question is, what has led to the high numbers that we're seeing in Langata, which is also becoming an area of concern? And what is the government doing about containing the situation in the area? Thank you.
Let me start off by answering those that are directed at the ministry, providing a response. I'll also ask Dr. Amo to come in and back up with some figures. Stephen Latoy, you asked about the modeling data that we are using.
Next 30 days or so. I'll allow Dr. Amot, when he comes to the podium, to address that and the following question also, which was on the modeling. But I want to say one or two things about modeling. Modeling is a procedure that helps to guide us on what we may predict, what we might be able to see given the circumstances that we are facing. And any model works on partial data, but it also works on making assumptions about certain things. Therefore, no model will be perfect because it will not have all the hard data that you require to be able to make an accurate prediction. Models will give you an idea and give you some level of prediction. Those predictions will whether those predictions come true will depend upon the assumptions that are made. And different models have made different assumptions. But as we move forward in this pandemic, and the whole globe experiences this pandemic, some of these data become hard data, and therefore modeling then tends to improve with time as you move forward. Dr. Amot will talk about that, but we expect that our level of modeling and prediction will improve with time as we move forward. I think you recall that earlier on we had talked about 10,000 peaking. We are now talking about 2,000 a day or so, perhaps late in August or September. Dr. Amot will address that issue. In terms of the wrong contact information, how many are there? I think for us to raise it here and to appeal to Kenyans that they need to give us correct information, I think it is a matter of concern because we are seeing quite a number of people who have been tested, but we are not able to trace them. And so that is a concern because once they are tested, especially if they turn out positive, it's extremely important that we are able to get these people who are positive and to be able to isolate them and provide them the treatment they need and to contain them so that the virus does not spread. So it remains an issue of concern, and we want to continue to appeal to Kenyans that they need to present themselves. They need to give the right information that we can be able to contact them when the results are out. The patient from Changamwe, I haven't heard about that, but perhaps Dr. Amot might know something about it. The patient whom you say escaped facility in Changamwe and is positive. Now, there was a question that said, how can you tell whether the COVID numbers are increasing, given that we are testing different numbers every day? Our testing capacity, as I said before, is largely determined by the resources and reagents that we have for testing. When you see us increase our testing level, it's because we then have sufficient kits to be able to do the level of testing we're doing. And you will note that in the last week or more, we have been testing 2,000 and over a day. That's a fairly large number. But you also know that when community transmission of the virus has established itself, then the number of positives that you are going to unveil is dependent upon the scale of testing that you do. So clearly, the more testing you do, the more likely it is that you are going to unearth more positives. That is expected. However, how does this information then help us? This information helps us because once we have been able to concentrate in certain areas, depending upon the risk maps that we have generated, and we see good numbers there, then we know that that's an area of high risk that requires some level of action or containment to reduce transmission of the virus. So it does inform us on the interventions that we will take to be able to contain the virus. On the matter of treatment costs, treatment testing costs, but largely treatment and quarantine costs. I think we have been putting out this message for quite a while now to the public that if it is a public facility and you are isolated or treated in that facility or quarantined in that facility, those costs are to be met by the government. Now, whether there are some facilities that are still putting up invoices, I don't know about that, but clearly KU is a public facility. The government position is that public facilities do not charge patients. So I'm sure that that case that you mentioned will be addressed. The Standard talked about the clinical trials that are going on, the solidarity trials which are sponsored by the World Health Organization on chloroquine, and whether we're seeing any of the clinical data that is being reported from some of these trials. What I can tell you is that Kenya as a country, we have signed up to be a part of these solidarity trials. And one arm of these solidarity trials is to evaluate the effectiveness of chloroquine when it is used as a treatment for COVID-19. These trials have not yet kicked off in Kenya because we have a process and a procedure of approving clinical trials. That process is ongoing and will be completed very soon, after which we will be able now to recruit patients who are in these facilities and then provide and put them into this study so that we can be able to determine whether chloroquine works or not. So that is the position we are at now. Some countries have moved forward in the solidarity trial. They had signed up earlier. They have been able to move forward and they are recruiting patients, and some level of data is coming out. But the solidarity trials are meant to collect as much information as possible across the globe. In fact, I think there are more than 40 or 50 countries that have signed up to do the solidarity trials. With that large number of patients being recruited, I think the data that comes out at that time, that's the kind of data that we can certainly say, indeed, either the chloroquine works, or it doesn't work, or it has these side effects, and so on. So that will come out once the trial is over in all of the countries that have signed up to be part of the trial. I think that's it for the questions that were directed to the ministry. I will ask the CSs to respond to their questions, and then we'll have Dr. Amoth come up and wrap up with his responses.
Yes, I think there was a question which was asked about, if I got you right, about the credibility, or how do we get assurance that what we are getting from these countries meet the standards required. You see, if I give you an example as to what we discussed with Tanzania, we discussed and agreed and put it in writing that those tests will be done in WHO accredited in facilities. So even here in Kenya, we know those facilities were there, the likes of Cambridge, for example. So even for these other countries, WHO will be accrediting certain facilities to make sure that they can comply or align with international standards. And we also get additional comfort because if we recall, through the EAC mechanisms, we had donations of mobile laboratories, I think from the Republic of Germany. These laboratories are placed in these various countries, and therefore the test being done in Tanzania with that laboratory will be the same as done by us, the same done by these other countries like Uganda. And that gives you extra assurance that what is coming out is indeed what is required. I think there was an issue about lockdown, and all I can say is that this is a matter which is continuously being reviewed by the respective committees which report to the president. And then thereafter, as you know, the president as head of state, he does give regular and progressive pronouncements with regard as to what will happen. So all I can assure you is that that process of review is a continuous process, and therefore, as and when decision will be made, they'll be escalated, and then the appropriate pronouncement will be made by the head of state.
Waziri, thank you. And let me add on to that, Waziri, also for your own information and for the media. I want to inform you that the mobile lab which we took to Namanga is already in place. It is already functioning. And as of today, it received about 46 samples from the point of entry to be tested with a turnaround time of about 5 hours or so. So what we had said is happening, and we hope that with this lab present there at Namanga, we should be able to deal with now the flow of the truckers across the border. In terms of the protocol for the test that we are using, and the Waziri has talked about it, is a WHO recommended protocol, and the WHO recommended protocol standard for diagnosis of coronavirus. And I want to make a distinction between diagnosis and picking up antibodies in blood. The diagnosis of coronavirus, where you want to demonstrate that the virus is actually present in the body, can be done by one test, and that is a molecular test called the reverse transcriptase PCR test. That is the standard that WHO has recommended for diagnosis of coronavirus, and we have agreed amongst the East African community members that that is the standard we shall use. So I think there is comfort knowing that we shall be using the same test to be able to issue the COVID-free certificates. Dr. Ahmad.
Thank you, CS. Thank you, Waziri Adda and Waziri Macharia, for joining us today. I'll just add a few things on what has been articulated by the CS. In terms of the modeling, of course, as Waziri has indicated, modeling is basically trying to project numbers or cases of a specific disease at a particular time based on data that is available. And modeling is not exact science. And I want to remind you that when we gave the figure of 10,000 for April, that was based on the fact that we would undertake no intervention. But remember, we did a lot. We closed schools, we closed churches, we stopped all gatherings. Then we also had the curfew in place. And then, of course, we ramped up in terms of behavior change communication for infection prevention control. This significantly flattened our curve, and therefore the numbers, even though they increased, they didn't increase exponentially so as to overcome or overrun our health facilities. Number two, yes, we can do modeling for 30 days, but it would make more sense to be able to project over a long period of time. In fact, last night, WHO gave a modeling of the disease pattern for COVID-19 in Africa, and if you look at the figures that they gave vis-a-vis what they gave 2 or 3 months ago, the numbers have drastically decreased. So let's not be fixated with the numbers that if Dr. Amos says you are going to have 3,000 cases in August, then that must come to happen. No. It is based on the measures that we put in place, the behavior of the population, therefore stopping transmission. And of course, that target is not set there to be achieved because it's a worst case scenario. And when you plan with that modeling, you plan with the worst case scenario so that you are properly prepared in terms of the numbers of human resource, in terms of the PPEs that require, the testing capacity, and everything else you require for containment. It is difficult to be able to test a given number of persons per day. One, testing is voluntary. We cannot put a gun to your head and tell you that you must be tested for COVID. Then testing is happening all over the country. So it will be very difficult to be able to say County X give us this number, County X, Y give us this number. This will just lead to falsification of the numbers and it will not be informative. There's a journalist who talked about the actual numbers. Remember on Saturday we usually have a meeting with you upstairs where we show you the graphs, the AP graph, which tells the total number of cases on a daily basis and vis-a-vis the total cumulative cases over a period of time. And if you remember how that graph looks like, it is a gradual increase in the number of cases, which we are happy about because it means our healthcare system is resilient enough to be able to respond to, and then we don't have surges in terms of very many patients coming to the facility. We are also equally happy because the initial cases of community deaths that we are witnessing in Isili, in Old Town, have now become a thing of the past. So it means that the message is sinking down. Regarding the Langata cases, many of those cases actually come from the informal settlement in Kibera. And you know the challenges that you'll face. One is high population density, therefore making physical distancing a very tall order. Number two, in terms of infection prevention control measures, availability of water and sanitation facilities is also compromised. So it is up to us, together with you, media as custodians of the people's information, to be able to continuously articulate these issues to the public to ensure that they must maintain social distancing, continuously wash their hands with soap and water, and of course use sanitizers where available. Finally, on the chloroquine, hydrochloroquine, yes, that was stopped because this was published in a very reputable journal, The Lancet, and it clearly showed that those who are on hydrochloroquine or chloroquine treatment were at a higher risk of death. That is about 37%, and 145% risk of developing abnormal heart patterns or arrhythmias. If you want further to look at hydrochloroquine together with the antibiotic azithromycin, the risk was even higher. The risk of death was much, much higher, and the risk of having abnormal heart patterns or arrhythmias was 415%. So clearly, based on that science, it would not be prudent to continue with that arm of the trial. But the other arm of the trial, the Solidarity trial, that includes remdesivir, will continue. The arm that uses Kaletra, that is ritonavir, lopinavir, will also continue. WHO is going to review this data based on safety and will revert back to us. But of course, the drugs can still be used for other conditions for which they are registered. That is mainly autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lupus, and porphyria cutanea tarda. Thank you.
We will issue summons and we shall fine him. Pursuant to the Powers and Privileges Act, Madam Speaker, and the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act. Because oversight, it is not a suggestion, it is not for fun, it is not a favor. You don't choose whether you will be oversighted or not. We have not suspended the Constitution. And I urge senators, surely, please, stand with us on this. Madam Speaker, Senator Faki will tell you that in my committee initially, I was being accused of being too friendly to the government when one of the CSs did not come. But when I issued someone swiftly, because they'd say, no, that one is our friend, we can deal with that committee. But I want to tell them, these CSs, even if you're our friends, we're not calling you for tea. It is not a date that, let me see when I can find. It is not a date, it is not a coffee date. You're coming to play your constitutional role of answering to the people of Kenya through the elected representatives. I don't know where that culture crept in. Madam Speaker, in the 9th Parliament, or was it 10th Parliament? 9th Parliament, before I joined the Parliament, I used to work in the National Treasury, in the office of the Deputy Prime Minister, Uhuru Kenyatta, who is now the President of Kenya. Whenever he'd be called to Parliament as Minister of Finance, even if he has been called by President Moi Kibaki, he would tell the President, please, I have been called to Parliament, let me finish. And President Moi Kibaki was very clear. If you're called to Parliament, that is your priority, unless it is cabinet day. We don't want to call them unnecessarily. And it's an online meeting. It is so simple. We've been doing meetings with Senator Munyihaji is in Mombasa, Senator Nyamira is elsewhere, Senator Mithika is in Meru. You just log in 1 hour and we finish. So, Madam Speaker, we will take action against the CS of Education, and we will bring in that communication. Because we have a problem in the education sector. There's no education going on. And we've not been able to be honest enough to explain to Kenyans, look, the quality of a student this year, surely, is not the same. You'll tell people to teach their kids at home, to watch TV. It is not, there's no education. I don't think you can say a class 8 student this year is of the same quality as a class 8 student last year. Since March, nothing. And you cannot say that they'll do an exam based on the first term and move to Form 1. So we need radical and real, honest resolutions. Madam Speaker, learners from low-income households, pastoralist communities, far-flanked regions have no access to internet, electricity, relevant gadgets. We said children should not have phones, so they don't have phones. How will they access this content? Even many of their parents may not have phones. Or TV. Today you see it is class 7 geography, tomorrow it is class 2 English, the next day it is class 4. There is no program. The programs currently being aired by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development don't incorporate suitable content for learners with disabilities, especially the blind and the deaf. How do we address those? The practical subjects are not covered. You cannot do chemistry, practicals online, or physics, or biology, for that matter. And the programs do not serve the main objective of the competency-based curriculum. So we really need that engagement. And CS, CS Magoy is my good friend. He was my professor. We have had a very interesting relationship when I was a student leader in Sonu. So we know each other very well. But I want to assure him that this is no longer the university. Madam Speaker, learning is not going, and the syllabus is not being covered. WASU came and told us what is going on in the universities. We have an issue. And it's not just in Kenya, it's all over. So we're saying let's just be practical. Let's give our children the best quality given the situation. Madam Speaker, early marriages have increased due to abrupt closure of learning institutions. Senator Naomi Wako might tell you what's happening in Marsabit, what's happening in Samburu, what's happening in many parts of this country. Incidences of gender-based violence have increased since the commencement of enforcement of measures to contain the spread of COVID-19, and it's affecting both genders. Men are really being worked on, Madam Speaker. And it's really terrible. Senator Kwamboka is laughing, but she knows. Because they are staying in the house the whole day, you're looking at each other, there's no money, there's a lot of breakdown. Madam Speaker, there are 350,000 people, especially older persons, eligible to benefit from Inua Jamii. They have not been benefiting due to lack of prompt updating of the register. As of last week, the CS confirmed that that is going on so that they can get back onto that register. And the mode of transmission of money to older persons registered under Inua Jamii still requires physical presence, which may expose these elderly people who are vulnerable to this pandemic because they have to go physically. But Madam Speaker, and this is the breakdown of our society. If you heard what the CS was telling us, is that many of these older persons insisted. They said, don't send to our phones because they are being lied to by their children and they're taking their money, or their children are registering a fake phone. So they want to go and get pesa taslimu. And now it is difficult for us to do that. So based on those observations, the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 makes the following recommendations, Madam Speaker. One, that the National Treasury set up a multi-agency team to spearhead the establishment of a wage relief fund in the financial year 2021-2022. This is extremely important. If there's no other recommendation in all our reports, this one is important, so that we can cushion the informal sector, we can cushion people in the tourism industry, in the hotel industry, small businesses can be able to go and access these monies. Already, if you have a relationship with your bank, they can tell, yes, this guy or this business has been receiving this turnover, but now they've been affected. Let's support them. Madam Speaker, we've analyzed 50 countries, 50 jurisdictions. In fact, we'll be embarrassed. Some of the countries that are doing wage relief are countries whose economies are not anywhere close to us. So this is the only way to cushion our people. We cannot send money directly to all Kenyans. It is impossible, and it is not sustainable. Madam Speaker, I told this House, I communicated to this House, or I alerted this House last week, that the projected GDP growth for this year, Madam Speaker, is supposed to be 2.5%. And Treasury told us that realistically, they are looking at 1.8, Madam Speaker, 1.8%. If you remember, the last time we were at 1.7 was after the 2007 election violence. And it has taken us more than 10 years to get to the level we had gotten to, Madam Speaker. Remember, previously, the year before that, it was 7.1 under President Mwai Kibaki. So because of that, Madam Speaker, the only way to stimulate the stimulus to the economy must be through small and medium-sized enterprises and the informal sector. 88% of the young people in this country are employed in the informal sector, manufacturing and retail, Madam Speaker. And we said even local products. We told KEMSA, stop just getting imports. Kenyans can do masks. Kenyans can do PPEs. In fact, the CS, after having tested samples from China and also from Kenya, with the labels removed, could not tell what the difference is. Said, actually, the Kenyan one is better. So we must stimulate our own businesses. We must buy Kenya at this point, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, we have recommended that. Number two, that the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, in liaison with the Federation of Kenya Employers and the Central Organization of Trade Unions, to reach out to employers and employees to ensure that where revenue losses have been realized, employers and employees may jointly review terms of employment contract in writing to suit the prevailing circumstances of businesses, Madam Speaker. We admit you cannot force someone to keep people employed when they're not getting anything. You know, it is impossible. But once there's that level of agreement and understanding, then they can be cushioned through that wage subsidy or wage relief fund, concessional grants or concessional loan. It's the only way. Even law firms are laying off people, Madam Speaker. Where parties choose to review the employment contract and employees are unionized, the trade union shall be informed and involved in the review to find an amicable solution. However, where employees are not unionized, the employer shall directly inform the employee of the need to review the contract and shall discuss the terms to be reviewed and the extent of review. Madam Speaker, the third recommendation is that the Ministry of Labor and Social Assistance should engage institutions in the remaining 33 counties that are not rolling out the state families rehabilitation fund, that they roll also that they can benefit from it. I'm sure what happened in Nakuru will not happen again. It should not. There's nothing worse. Madam Speaker, the greatness of a people, of a country, it's not the size of your, it's what you do for the most vulnerable. Kids. We went with Senator Kihika, we saw kids, young boys, who had been dumped, Madam Speaker. Kids that look like my sons, you know. It is terrible, Madam Speaker. So the other 33 counties must roll out and must benefit from this Street Families Rehabilitation Fund. Madam Speaker, the Judicial Service Commission, we recommend that they immediately upscale the judicial services in liaison with the Ministry of ICT, who have expressed willingness to use the ICT, especially in e-filing and virtual courts, and report status of implementation to the Senate on or before 29th May 2020. The Judicial Service Commission should explore ways in which alternative dispute resolution, which Senator Kasanga can tell you about very eloquently, my Vice Chair, very able, can be embraced virtually to decongest our courts. And that is, arbitration, instead of taking everything to court, Madam Speaker. And I'm glad Senator Kika also stopped going to court. She's also reduced the concentration. Madam Speaker, the alternative methods of dispute resolution. In fact, even today, I'm really sad to see colleagues being paraded at a disciplinary of the party. Though that is our internal thing, Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate. Alternative, we saw ODM Senator Olekina sitting with Wazes, with his Right Honorable former Prime Minister, and they resolved it. There's a way, now on TV, Senator Kika has children, Senator Mary Senator has a family. There are better ways to do this. We can instill discipline, but in a better way. So let's not be always... In fact, in Africa, our form of justice is restorative, not retributive. Restorative. Because you still need a relationship tomorrow, moving forward. But anyway, that is for those in charge. Madam Speaker, the National Transport and Safety Authority has intervened and should continue to ensure that during the period of restriction of movement in and out of various counties, the matatus affected by the restrictions can ply alternative routes to avoid redundancy. Madam Speaker, the matatus of Nyeri that are stuck in Nairobi, or vice versa, or Kajiado, or Nakuru, since they cannot do the long, they cannot still do those old routes, we've agreed with the NTSA that during this time they'll be allowed to use other routes, in consultation with the SACCOs that already exist because of the competition. But we also need to care about them because what are they, as it is, the capacity is half. Number two, we sat and we agreed for Nairobi Matatus, Madam Speaker, and I pushed this completely with the CS and the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, that those seasonal tickets be suspended. For now, 8,500, 3,500, 5,500 for 33-seater is too much for these people. They're already carrying half. And we don't want them to pass on that cost to Mwananchi. And I hope they can do the same in Mombasa or in Nakuru, in these big cities, Madam Speaker. And so that's something I'm following up with the CS, so that our matatus can still be able to, let's cushion the drivers and the touts and the owners of these matatus. Many of these vehicles are actually on loan. Many of our Uber drivers, Madam Speaker, had been auctioned or are being auctioned. It is dire, but some small reliefs can really help them. Madam Speaker, the NTSA must extend the validity of manual licenses for an additional 1 year, since the application for digital licenses requires physical appearance for purposes of biometrics, which is currently restricted due to the measures put in place. The Independent Police Oversight Authority must move with speed to ensure police officers found to have used excessive force on citizens while enforcing various measures are prosecuted. We have asked that the authority submits a report to the Senate by 15th of June, 2020, indicating the police officers who have been prosecuted and the actions taken against them and the charges. Madam Speaker, the other day I came here, very sad. A young man, 13-year-old Yasin Moyo, killed in Kiamaiko, shot, dead during the curfew. We've seen deaths also in other parts of the country. Madam Speaker, if that police officer does not, and I said, even if it means personal, I think, I don't know whether Senator Faki can represent me or Senator Kiika, that we actually take them to court. The child was on the balcony. The officers, of course, they say, from their side, they were saying that the Wananchi were harassing them and stoning them and throwing water on them. I took the Inspector General of Police's head liaison officer and an officer from CSNT, and we went to Kiamaiko. And when you see the father crying, the mother distraught, because when the officers shot, the kid in the balcony told the mom, "Mom, I think I've been shot." And the mom said, in Kiswahili, wewe unakuanga na mchezo sana. Umeshutiwaje? By the time the boy went to hospital, it was too late. They need justice. The family of Yasin Moyo needs justice. The family of all those who, during this curfew, or during this pandemic, their rights have been violated, need justice. So that it be a lesson to, and I don't know what happened to rubber bullets. Anyway, it's very painful, Madam Speaker, if you see those people. Even what we were able to do for them is not enough. We can never bring Yasin Moy. So the community said, actually, it is true, yes, they harassed the police, but that is not the commensurate force that you respond to that. Madam Speaker, I'm also calling on the public. Let's exercise responsibility. It is not just haki yetu, but pia wajibu wetu. We have a responsibility also as the public, but the police should not use that as an excuse, Madam Speaker, to violate the human rights of the people. Madam Speaker, I would wish that you let me know how much more time I have through the clerks at the table. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs needs to set a clear criterion on eligibility of Kenyans in the diaspora who are in dire need of coming back home, but cannot afford their tickets. And we must give priority to students, to those who are gone for, I have very many of my residents in Nairobi, my citizens. I like calling them citizens of Nairobi, not just residents, because it's not just a house, but you are Nairobi. They say, I am Nairobi. Who went to India?
Senator Sakaja, you have another 17 minutes.
17?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think I'll finish even before that. Who went to India for treatment, can't come back. And normally the nature of people who go for treatment there, they might not, they don't have the resources even to stay on. There's the hospital bill, or sometimes you find somebody even the situation has become fatal. We really need a concrete solution. And I'm glad, and I want to thank the CS, extremely gracious lady from Bondo, CS Omamo. She is doing an amazing job, but we need to see more for our people. We need to see more. If you look at China, Guangzhou, and Beijing, if you look at some of Kenyans in the UK, and I want to single out the ambassador there, Manoa Isipiso, because he really helped. I know even I have a relative who came, who was brought back, because the embassy there is responsive. They're listening to Kenyans. They tell them on this date and this date there'll be a flight. I would like to urge other ambassadors who are Kenyan ambassadors in other countries to realize that a Kenyan embassy or a Kenyan mission abroad must be seen as a fortress for Kenyans. Kenyans must be excited to go there. They must receive service, Madam Speaker. So we have asked that the ministry submit a detailed report by the 19th of June, indicating the criteria set to identify and the priority of Kenyans in the diaspora eligible for support, and measures taken by the ministry to mobilize resources to facilitate these Kenyans. We want that by the 19th of June. Madam Speaker, if you notice, our recommendations are very specific. We don't just want to give a wish list. We are saying this must be done by this date. And if this house resolves, bas. Madam Speaker, we're saying the Ministry of Education must enhance digital literacy for teaching and learning regardless. But anyway, I've spoken about that, and I've said that the CS of Education, if he does not attend to this house, like his other 8 colleagues have come. Even Interior, we issued summons, and they came. Labor, Trade and Industrialization, CS Treasury, during this financial cycle, came and we sat with him for 2-3 hours. ICT, the Ministry of Education is not special. They must also attend. And then we shall give a concrete response. And it is simple, really, it is simple. Madam Speaker, we have said that the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection also roll out a plan to update its register and incorporate the over 350,000 eligible beneficiaries, and must report to us within 2 weeks on the progress on that. And finally, that the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, in liaison with the Ministry of Interior and National Coordination, carries out capacity building of older persons with an aim of remitting the funds via mobile platforms. Madam Speaker, this work is continuing. It is going on. When we sat on the 20th of April with the CS Chelugui and the PS, they said they've set up this multi-agency team with Ngao and the Ministry and the Ministry of Health, and the criteria, because we said, what is the vulnerability testing? How are you identifying who is vulnerable? They had received 8.7 billion to benefit 1 million Kenyans, 1,094,238 Kenyans, and they have started processing this through Cooperative Bank, Post Bank, KCB, and Equity Banks. A total of 8,000 will be paid per beneficiary, covering January to April 2020. And then the 350,000 Kenyans eligible to be paid have not been captured. Madam Speaker, the register being used is 3 to 4 years old, and needs to be updated. 293,967 beneficiaries enrolled under orphans and vulnerable children are to receive 2.3 billion, while 766,254 enrolled under older persons are to receive 6.13 billion.
Sorry, Senator Kihik and Senator Murkomen, the social guideline is being broken there. Senator, continue.
Madam Speaker,
Yeah.
we are socially close.
Not allowed in the House, Senator. Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Street Families Rehabilitation Transfer that I spoke about is only in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi, Machakos, Nyeri, Kakamega, Kajiado, Kiambu, Murang'a, Nakuru, Kisumu, and Trans Nzoia. And they have received 34 million. We want the other counties. I'm sure there are street families in Elgeyo Marakwet. There are street families in Vihiga. There are street families all over the country. It would not be fair if we only focus on these, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we want to tell Kenyans that there is a toll-free number, 0800-21168, and a dedicated email address, complaints@labour.go.ke, that have been established to enhance reporting and resolution of employment and labor-related complaints during this time. And I'm glad I have tried it, it worked. The employers have been urged to advise their workers to take annual leave with half pay or unpaid leave. But still, the only real way of cushioning is through the wage subsidy fund and such provisions. Madam Speaker, the emergency workplace guidelines that have been issued by the ministry about jointly reviewing terms of employment contract in writing to suit prevailing circumstances of business. Where parties choose to review the contract, the trade union and shop stewards will be informed where they're unionized. Where employees are not unionized, the employer shall directly inform the employee. And there are all those guidelines that members you'll see in the report that is available to the public. The public must see it because this is your right. This is what we're doing to be able to cushion you. Madam Speaker, as I mentioned as well, 193, when we started with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we were sad to learn that 193 Kenyans had been infected by the virus outside the country, internationally. 88 active infections, 78 had recovered, 4 in ICU, 3 in Italy, and 1 in Sweden, and 24 Kenyans have died of coronavirus outside Kenya. The deaths reported were from the US, UK, Italy, France, Switzerland, Sweden, Saudi Arabia, and South Africa. Madam Speaker, we agreed that the ministry has an enormous task to assist those Kenyans out there. Some Kenyans need their visas to be extended. Some have acquired citizenship and therefore can get health and social security benefits. Many don't have valid work permits. Again, today I'm really using Senator Kika as an example, but she was in the US for a long time, and she'll tell you most Kenyans there don't even want to be registered by the embassy because they'll be brought back. They're there illegally, but still they are our people. Yeah? But you, I know you are there legally. They are undocumented. So Madam Speaker was saying that to effectively deal with interventions, there's a policy framework that has been put in that we're analyzing. And once we're done with the thematic area, we hand it back to the relevant committee. So I'm glad I can see a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Non-monetary interventions, such as extension of visas and work permits, facilitating continuous accommodation of students who have nowhere to go and schools are closed, the universities, and negotiating for air tickets, because if you're doing it in mass. So far, what has been done is Kenyan missions in France, Japan, Australia, Spain, New Zealand, India have facilitated extension of visas for Kenyans. The mission in China has requested for amnesty for Kenyans with irregular status. Imagine, because also there are many Chinese here with irregular status. Kenyan mission in France has facilitated 61 teacher trainee to be accommodated by universities in France for a month. Kenyan mission in Morocco and Czech Republic have facilitated students to be accommodated in the universities. Our Kenyan mission in Hungary has facilitated 200 students with food and accommodation, facilitating those who want to come back home by looking for airline and negotiating air ticket prices. Then the Kenyans pay for those subsidized tickets, and through that, on 27th March, 70 Kenyans got subsidized tickets from South Sudan. On 7th April, 21 Kenyans from UAE, Dubai, came on Emirates. On 1st of May, 18 Kenyans from Egypt aboard Air Cairo. On 4th of May, 21 Kenyans from Pakistan aboard Pakistan International Airline. On 4th of May, 55 Kenyans aboard Kenya Airways. On 7th of May 2020, 233 Kenyans from India aboard Kenya Airways. This was the most challenging exercise because many of them were unwell. Madam Speaker, they were scattered. New Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, and Hyderabad. As India was on total lockdown, the Indian government was gracious enough to allow a local charter to move Kenyans to Mumbai, and then now they came on KQ. And 8th of May, 200 Kenyans from the UAE, Dubai again. And the 10th of May, 2020, 165 from China. So really, we must commend as a house. We're commending our Kenyan missions abroad. I think they're doing a great job. They're doing a good job. So in total, as of the date when we met the ministry, 744 Kenyans have been facilitated to come back home. And I'm sure the number has gone up. The ministry has also put in place monetary interventions. I'm sure many members are not aware. There's a stipend that was extended to students in Wuhan, for instance, to the tune of 9.8 million. They're getting that stipend from the government of Kenya. Madam Speaker, there's a standing committee on emergency response that has been set up, chaired by the Honorable Ababu Namwamba, the CAS, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And they are to put in place proactive measures just in case need arises for the more than 100,000 Kenyans working as domestic workers in the Middle East. A lot of Kenyans in the Middle East working as domestic workers, and we must be concerned. Madam Speaker, on the issue of truck drivers, I think that was discussed, and again I said Senator Munyaji would be best placed as he seconds this motion. On the 12th of May, the presidents met of East Africa community and directed that local points for formulation of testing and certification of truck drivers be produced and availed within 2 weeks. So we are waiting. That was last week. It was the other week. We are waiting to see what will be done. Madam Speaker, we have 494,585 refugees. 200,000 are based in Dadaab and 196,000 at Kakuma. 81,000 in urban areas. So we have engaged, the ministry has engaged the UNHCR to find out measures that are being taken to secure these camps and the preventative measures that have been put in place. Madam Speaker, there has been a lot of concern on the Kenya-Tanzania border because of the risk of infections, importation, because how our neighbors have been dealing with COVID, and to make sure there's no cross-infection. I think that matter is still being handled, and I'll be able to give a further update in next week's report. The ministry is investigating the matter that Senator Faki asked about, aircraft carrying humanitarian supplies that was shot down in Somalia, killing 2 Kenyan citizens. The ministry issued a statement on the matter, and I think the investigation is going on between the 2 countries. But I think the strength of Senator's statement will really help us get to the bottom of that. And on the safety and staff, because we must also think of the staff of our missions abroad. The ministry confirmed that all of them were safe, and activities at the various ministries have been downscaled. There is no staff who has been infected of our Kenyan missions abroad. Madam Speaker, I'll urge members really to go through this report. There are 6 reports so far. Please take time and look at those reports because they are not final. We've given those recommendations, but they're progress reports, and we will keep bringing reports every week or 2 weeks, Madam Speaker. You can enrich the reports, you can enrich our interventions, you can be able to help us, Madam Speaker, because if you look at what Senator Beth Mugo proposed, she gave us a lot of great insights on the bill. Senator Ochilo Oyako has great insights on the bill, and we've incorporated amendments. Senator Faria as well has done quite a good job, Madam Speaker. And if you go through that, you will see all of these specific proposals, all of the interactions we've had, and I must note that they have indeed been very enriching. Madam Speaker, as I move to close, please let us remember, because I feel that we've denatured or we've become insensitive to the urgency of this matter. And Madam Speaker, we have the bill that we've been unable to put the question to. I urge my colleagues, please. At a time of a pandemic, this country needs you. This country needs generals do not disappear from the front line of battle. That we can come and actually, please next week, let's do second reading and committee of the whole so that we can cushion Kenyans are suffering. They need to be cushioned, they need to be protected, they need to be supported. Madam Speaker, with those very many remarks, allow me to move, I beg to move, and I would like to ask if you could allow Senator Munyihaji, who is a member of my committee, to second. Once again, I thank the staff from your office, Madam Speaker. This senator has, I think, the most professional staff, led by Charles Munywa, and all of them for doing an amazing job as the clerks of our committee. And I want to thank the other members of the committee, including the Vice Chair, Senator Kasanga. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move.
Senator Haji, Senator for Mombasa.
Asante Bi Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii kuunga mkono ripoti ya 6 ya kamati maalumu ya COVID. Kwanza Mheshimiwa Speaker, ningependa kumpongeza mwenyekiti wa kamati hii. Tumeweza kufanya mikutano zaidi ya 55 kwa muda mchache sana ambao komiti hii ilichaguliwa, na katika mikutano hiyo yote nafikiri waliohudhuria walikuwa wazidi 70% katika kila mkutano. Kwa hivyo imeonyesha kwamba maseneta ambao wako katika komiti hii pamoja na wale wafanyakazi wa bunge ambao wametumikia kamati hii walikuwa wamejitolea 100% katika kuhudumia kamati hii. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, mbali na kuipongeza mwenyekiti na maseneta wote ambao katika kamati ile, pia napongeza wafanyakazi wa bunge ambao wako seconded katika kamati ile. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kamati imeweza kufanya mahojiano na washikadau tofauti, na isipokuwa waziri wa elimu ndio peke yake amekataa kuhudhuria vikao vya kamati hiyo. Na nafurahi kwamba japokuwa mwenyekiti asema ni rafiki yake, lakini itakapofika wakati wa kuweka kiboko, nafikiri atamweka kiboko waziri Profesa Magoha, kwa sababu kupuuza wito wa bunge ni kupuuza haki ya wananchi kuangalia shughuli za serikali katika mambo wanawafanyia wananchi. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ningependa pia kusema kwamba unyanyapaa, yani stigma, ndio tatizo kubwa ambalo linatuathiri katika vita dhidi ya corona. Wengi wanahofu kwamba ukiambiwa umepatikana na corona ni kama ambaye umepewa hukumu ya kifo. Kwa hivyo hustahili wewe kufanywa jambo lolote na serikali. Lakini ningependa kusema kwamba corona ni ugonjwa kama magonjwa mengine yoyote, na unapoambukizwa corona una 98% kwamba unaweza kupona. Kwa hivyo ni 2% peke yake ndio inatutia hofu kwamba hatutaweza kuishi maisha ya kawaida. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, wengi wanaopatikana na virusi vya corona inabidi kwamba jamii iwatenge, na jamii inapowatenga ina maana kwamba hawataweza kuwa na nafasi ya kuweza kupata fursa ya kuweza kujihudumia kwa ugonjwa ule, na wananchi pia na jamii pia iweze kuwasaidia katika kujitibu ama kuweza kupona ugonjwa kama ule. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, lazima tupambane na hii unyanyapaa, yani hii stigma, ili kuhakikisha kwamba tuweze kuuza sera kwamba ugonjwa wa corona ni ugonjwa kama ugonjwa mwingine wote. Tukiangalia hapo mbeleni tulikuwa na ugonjwa wa ukimwi ambao kila mtu alikuwa zamani ukipatikana na ukimwi unazikwa, kama umekufa kwa ukimwi unazikwa katika malailoni, mpaka ikaja ikaonekana kwamba shida kubwa ambayo tuko nayo katika ukimwi, kupigana na ukimwi, ni stigma. Kwa hivyo tulipopambana na stigma tukaleta vifaa zile center za kuchunguza, yani zile zinatoa huduma za VCT, yani kuchunguzwa, voluntary counseling and testing center. Ndio pale tukaweza kubadilisha mfumo wa kuweza kupambana na ugonjwa wa ukimwi. Ilikuwa ukiingia katika vituo vile unashauriwa kwamba ukiugua ukimwi sio mwisho wa maisha, utaweza kuishi, utaweza kuendelea na maisha yako kama kawaida, bora uweze kunywa dawa, bora uweze jifanyia maombi na kuweza kuishi maisha ambayo ni ya kuendelea, yani positive thinking katika maisha yako. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima Wizara ya Afya ije na mfumo wa kuondoa hii stigma, ili wananchi waweze kupewa ushauri na saha, ili wewe ukiingia pale kufanyiwa uchunguzi wa virusi vya corona una uhakika kwamba itakuwa sio hukumu ya kifo. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia katika sehemu nyingi kama vile mji wa Kale, wananchi wengi walikataa kufanyiwa uchunguzi wa corona kwa sababu wakati ule ilipoletwa uchunguzi, yani mass testing, wengi walikuwa hawajajua ni jambo gani ambalo nitaweza kufanya mimi baada ya kupatikana na virusi vya corona. Ilikuwa pia serikali imeweka malipo ya wale ambao wanakwenda quarantine na wale ambao wanalazwa hospitali kutibiwa ugonjwa wa corona. Kwa hivyo wengi wakaogopa kuchukua hatua ya kufanya uchunguzi, na ndio maana ikawa uchunguzi unafeli. Na vile vile pia ilipokuja swala la kufanya cessation of movement, yani kuzuia watu wasiingie na kutoka Old Town na Eastleigh, pia hukumu hii ama sheria hii ilichukuliwa bila ya kufanya mashauriano na wakazi wa sehemu zile. Mheshimiwa Spika, sehemu yoyote kama alivyotangulia kusema Seneta Sakaja kwamba ikifanywa uchunguzi sasa itapatikana kwamba 2.5% ama 3% ya wananchi katika eneo lile wana virusi vya corona. Kwa hivyo ni virusi ambavyo watu wanaishi navyo, lakini havijaambukiza ikafika kiwango ambacho watu wanapata ugonjwa wa corona na kuweza kuathirika na kuweza labda kulazwa hospitali na watu kufariki. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ilikuwa ni makosa kwa serikali kulazimisha cessation of movement katika Old Town na vile vile pia katika Eastleigh, kwa sababu imeathiri watu wengi katika huu mwezi wa Ramadhani, ambao wengi walikuwa wanatarajia kwamba watapata biashara siku za mwisho za Ramadhani ili waweze kujikimu kimaisha na pia waangalie jamii zao kwa muda wa miezi 3 au 4 itakayofuatia mbeleni. Watu wale wa biashara wote wameweza kupoteza biashara zao, na hivi sasa serikali haijatoa mpango wote wa kuhakikisha kwamba wamepata ridhaa kwa kukosa biashara. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumezungumzia katika ripoti hii swala la madereva wanaopeleka bidhaa katika nchi za nje na wale wanaoingiza bidhaa pia katika nchi ya Kenya. Naona kwamba madereva wetu wengi wamekwama katika sehemu za Namanga, sehemu za Malaba na vile vile sehemu za Lungalunga, kwa sababu nchi jirani zimekataa kuwaruhusu kuingia mpaka wafanye test, yani wachunguzwe katika nchi zile ili waweze kubaa vibali vya kuweza kuingia katika nchi zile. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama tungekuwa tumefanya mipango ya mapema, tungeweza kuweka vifaa hivi vya uchunguzi katika kila weigh bridge, kwa sababu magari yote yakitoka Mombasa kwa mfano, kuna weigh bridge Mariakani, kuna weigh bridge Dongo Kundu chini, kuna weigh bridge Mlolongo mpaka Nairobi, zingekuwa weigh bridges zinatumika watu kuchunguzwa, na ukishapewa kibali kile kiweze kutumika labda kwa muda wa mwezi mmoja, ili mtu asiweze kuwa ana haja ya kuweza kuchunguzwa tena baada ya siku 14. Hivi sasa wanachunguza kila baada ya siku 14, na imekuwa shida Mheshimiwa Spika kuhakikisha kwamba watu wale wanapata huduma ya kuchunguzwa kwa haraka na kwa njia ambayo haitasababisha maambukizi. Tuliangalia juzi kule Jomvu constituency, ilikuwa ni kituo kimoja ambacho kina wahudumu wawili peke yake na kinahudumia watu zaidi ya 600 kwa wakati mmoja, ili kuhakikisha kwamba watu wamepimwa kwa haraka waweze kupata matibabu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kutokana na msongamano ulioko Malaba na vile vile pia hatua nyingine ambazo waziri amechukua ili kwa kisingizio cha corona, maandamano ya Black Monday katika mji wa Mombasa yatarudi tena kuanzia Jumatatu tarehe 1 mwezi wa 6, kwa sababu serikali imeshindwa kutatua tatizo la madereva wa long distance driving kupeleka mizigo nchi za nje, na vile vile pia wameshindwa kutoa nafasi kwa biashara iweze kufanyika bila ya mapendeleo kwa SGR. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona pia kwamba katika kuingiliana na washikadau tofauti kwamba serikali ilikuwa haina mwelekeo mwanzoni kuhusiana na swala la virusi vya corona. Tuliona kwamba mwanzoni walisema kwamba kila mtu atalipishwa ili afanywe test ya corona, baadaye wakageuka, watu walipopiga kelele wakageuka wakasema kwamba sasa testi zitakuwa bure. Walisema watalipisha watu wanaokwenda kwenye quarantine. Baadaye wananchi walipolalamika wakasema kwamba sasa itakuwa bure. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaona kwamba kumekuwa na kutoelewana kwa upande wa serikali kuhakikisha kwamba wananchi wanaweza kupata huduma ambazo zinafanywa zinatakana katika kupigana na corona, ili kuhakikisha kwamba hakuna maambukizi yanayoongezeka kutokana na utepetevu kwa upande wa serikali. Mheshimiwa Spika, imekuwa siku hizi ni mtindo kwamba kila saa 9 serikali inatoa takrimu za watu walioambukizwa corona na vile vile wale ambao wameweza kupona janga hili. Lakini tarakimu hizo hazisaidii Mheshimiwa Spika kuhakikisha kwamba maambukizi yanapungua. Isipokuwa maambukizi yameweza kuongezeka, na inakuwa shida kwa wataalamu wetu kuweza kutoa muongozo kamili ni vipi tutaweza kupambana na corona. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona nchi jirani Magufuli, japokuwa watu walimuita kwamba haelewi ama nini, lakini ameona kwamba ipo haja maisha kuendelea. Corona iwepo, corona isiwepo, kwa sababu corona ni ugonjwa kama ugonjwa mwingine. Tumeweza kupoteza watu 200 kwa mafuriko katika nchi ya Kenya hivi majuzi. Tumeweza kupoteza watu 20 Mheshimiwa Spika kwa sababu ya polisi kutekeleza kafyu na kuhudumu ama kudhulumu haki za binadamu za watu wengi ambao wameweza kupigwa na wengine wakafariki. Kijana aliyezungumzia Senator Sakaja ni kitu ambacho kiko wazi katika macho ya wananchi kwamba polisi walitumia silaha kinyume na sheria, kwa sababu walipiga risasi wakati ilikuwa si salama kwao kuweza kutumia risasi zile. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona kwamba wananchi wanaendelea kupata shida kwa sababu kuna sehemu nyingi, kama mfano tumeona ripoti za leo kwamba sehemu za Old Town na vile vile sehemu za Eastleigh watu wanalipa pesa kwa askari polisi ili waweze kuingia na kutoka sehemu zile kwa sababu ya masuala ya corona. Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile tumeona kwamba biashara pia katika zile kaunti ambazo hazikupata hii tunaita cessation of movement imepungua pakubwa. Tukiangalia Mheshimiwa Spika, sehemu za Ukambani, mimi nimeweza kusafiri leo asubuhi kutoka Mombasa kuja Nairobi, nimeona kwamba sehemu za Ukambani kuanzia maeneo ya Mtito wa Ndei mpaka Mlolongo kuna chakula kingi sana na matunda na kila kitu katika sehemu zile, lakini hatuoni wafanyabiashara wakichukua fursa hiyo kuweza kuleta bidhaa zile. Kwa mfano kaunti ya Taita na kaunti zinginezo ambazo hazina cessation of movement ya biashara. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kusema pia kwamba tumeona pia kuwa serikali katika masuala ya afya imeweza pia kuzembea, kwa sababu huduma zilizokuwa zikitolewa katika zile sehemu za quarantine zilikuwa haziridhishi kabisa. Tukiangalia kama kule Potrizi kulikuwa na quarantine ya serikali ambayo ilikuwa haina huduma za maji. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaona kwamba kaunti nyingi zimeweza kuamka sasa na kuweza kutoa huduma ya maji kwa wananchi, lakini kabla ya kuja kwa corona ilikuwa huduma ya maji ni nadra sana katika nchi, katika sehemu zingine za kaunti zetu. Tukiangalia Mombasa, soko la zamani zile la Marikiti ambalo lilijengwa katika miaka 1900 limeweza kupewa sura mpya hivi sasa kwa sababu ya corona. Lakini kabla ya hapo Mheshimiwa Spika, kulikuwa na utepetevu mkubwa sana katika utendakazi wa kaunti ya Mombasa na vile vile pia vitengo vya serikali ya Kenya katika mji wa Mombasa, kwa sababu huduma zilikuwa hakuna, maji hakuna, barabara zote ni mbovu, huduma za usafi katika soko zilikuwa zimetepetea. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, japokuwa corona ni janga, lakini pia limeweza kuleta ile tunaita silver lining katika baadhi ya kaunti zetu ili kuona kwamba huduma zinaboreshwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, kumezungumziwa hapa swala la watu walioko nje ya Kenya. Ni kweli Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wengi ambao walikuwa wako nje wameweza kutatizika kwa sababu hakuna ndege za kuwarejesha Kenya. Tumeona nchi nyingine kama vile nchi ya Uingereza, nchi za Marekani zimeweza kutuma ndege kubeba raia wao walioko katika sehemu tofauti tofauti ambazo walikuwa wamekwama kwa janga la corona. Mheshimiwa Spika, wale marubani 4 ambao walikufa katika ile ndege iliyopigwa na jeshi la Ethiopia walikaa Mogadishu kwa zaidi ya mwezi mmoja na nusu hawana kazi, na hiyo ndio ikasababisha kuwa wasiweze kurudi nyumbani, wakajiunga na familia zao. Na ilipotokea hii kazi, nilikuwa ni mara yao ya kwanza kupata kazi mwezi ule, wakaweza kupigwa na wakafariki. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona kwamba swala la Wakenya kurejea nyumbani wakati huu ambao kuna shida limeweza kutatiza serikali, kwa sababu japokuwa serikali yategemea zile foreign remittances ili kuenua hali yake ya fedha za kigeni, imekuwa sasa imewatupa mkono watu wengi ambao wako nje kwa sababu ya hawakuweza kuwarejesha nyumbani kuweza kujiunga na familia zao. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ripoti yetu ya 6 ambayo imetolewa ni ripoti ambayo imeweza kuchangiwa pakubwa na washikadau wengi. Vile vile tumeona katika upande wa mahakama kumekuwa na ongezeko la matumizi ya teknolojia kwa sasa. Leo nilipokuwa nasafiri kutoka Mombasa kuja Nairobi, niliweza kuchukua judgment kwa kesi yangu moja ambayo ilikuwa inasomwa kutoka Mombasa kupitia kwa mtandao, na hiyo ndio imewezesha kesi nyingi ziweze kuamuliwa kupitia kwa mitandao, kwa sababu ni rahisi na haina gharama, na wala haimlazimishi hakimu ama jaji kuweza kujitokeza hadharani ili aweze kupata hatari ya kuambukizwa virusi vya corona. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja katika siku za usoni kuhakikisha kwamba teknolojia kama hii inaendelea kutumika mahakamani, kwa sababu ukiangalia mahakamani katika ratiba ya kesi ambazo zinaorodheshwa kila asubuhi, utapata kuna kesi zaidi ya 20 ama 30 ambazo zinatajwa ili kutoa mwongozo ni jambo gani ambalo litakana kufanyika. Kesi zile Mheshimiwa Spika, hazina haja kumpeleka wakili mahakamani ama jaji kutoka aje kwa mahakama ya wazi ili aweze kufanya masuala kama yale. Zile zinaweza kufanywa kupitia kwa mtandao mara moja baina ya saa 2 na saa 3, ili saa 3 mahakama ianze kazi za kusikiza kesi kwa haraka ili wananchi waweze kupata huduma za mahakama kwa urahisi. Mheshimiwa Spika, swala jingine ambalo zimezungumziwa ni hii swala la social programs kwa wale wazee na wale wengine ambao wameathirika. Ni kweli Mheshimiwa Spika, hata katika legal profession ama katika orodha ya mawakili katika nchi ya Kenya, kuna wengi ambao hivi sasa wametatizika kwa sababu hawajaweza kupata kazi na waweza kupata malipo kutokana na huduma zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimefurahi kwamba baadhi ya mawakili katika Law Society of Kenya wameweza kufanya michango na kuwasaidia wale ambao hawana mapato yao yamekuwa chini ili waweze kujimudu kimaisha kwa muda huu wa corona. Lakini hiyo haitoshi Mheshimiwa Spika, na ndio mnaona ipo haja ya kuweza kuangalia ni njia gani ambazo tuweza kuanzisha hazina maalumu ya kusaidia biashara ndogo ndogo kama biashara za wale profession. Madaktari pia, kuna madaktari wengi wameweza kufunga zahanati zao kwa sasa kwa sababu hakuna wagonjwa wanaweza kwenda katika zahanati kama hizi. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja ya hii hazina kuweza kuwekwa ili wananchi kulingana na ile kodi unaopata, ile returns ambazo wewe unapeleka kwa Kenya Revenue Authority kila mwaka, ili uweze kupewa mikopo ama uweze kupewa ruzuku kulingana na yale mapato ambayo umeweza kudeclare kwa Kenya Revenue Authority. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, bila kuongea zaidi ya hapo, ningependa kuunga mkono ripoti hii na kuomba maseneta waweze kujitokeza kwa wingi siku ya Jumanne, tuhakikishe kwamba tumeweza kupitisha ule mswada wa COVID pandemic bill 2020 ili kuhakikisha kwamba tunakuwa na mwongozo wa muda mrefu wa masuala kama haya. Asante Bi Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Ongeri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this singular opportunity to address a very important
sorry,
bill.
sorry, Senator, please take your... Not done the procedure. Honorable Senators, I would now like to propose the question that the Senate adopts the progress report of the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 19th May 2020. Senator Ongeri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to comment on the COVID-19 report that has been laid before this House. It's an important report. The coronavirus has taken the world by storm. And therefore, any emerging nation must of all necessity be in a state of preparedness in dealing with any nature, any manner of the pandemic that may seize that nation. And therefore, it's important that we as a nation of Kenya, we are seized with the details on how to react in the future pandemics. I think we learned from the previous lessons. Like I remember very vividly when the HIV/AIDS pandemic came into this country, I was in the forefront of trying to get the response where the president declared it a national disaster. It was only through this process that we were able to access the antiretroviral drugs which were patented and beyond the reach of Mwananchi's affordability. And therefore, it was important to take that step because it was possible to recruit many more people to be able to enter into a treatment regime so that they could be able to get the benefit of the antiretroviral drugs. And I think by that experience alone, we have learned that this pandemic, particularly the HIV/AIDS, when we had a very high prevalence rate at about an average of 14%, we were able to progressively bring it down to a manageable percentage. And therefore, we learned from that experience that it was important, first of all, to be able to have the necessary available drugs to be able to deal with the pandemic. And therefore, the drugs were put in place that were able to deal with this pandemic. Secondly, we're also able to look at the socio-economic aspect of the disease because it caused a lot of debilitating issues to the families and the stigma that was associated with it. And we had to find a way of going around it, that it was a manageable problem, it was a manageable disease, and therefore we could be able to deal with it more firmly. Apart from that, there was also the element of other pandemics that came thereafter, which we were able to deal with them quite progressively. I must say, Madam Speaker, that one of the things that we have learned from coronavirus is the invasiveness of this disease to be able to reach out to a vast number of populations uncontrolled, in a very uncontrollable manner. And therefore, we've learned that social distancing is not just a song, but it's a necessary element to be able to keep the disease at bay. That's the first thing that we have learned. That it's no respect of persons. Doesn't matter what rank you are in, what age you are in, what sex orientation you are in. It will catch everybody unawares. And therefore, we need to know how to react, first of all, as family members, how to react as a community and society, and how we should react at the county level, and how we should react at the national level. Obviously, the national government must give direction on the policy approaches that are needed to be able to deal with this situation. As we see today, what has this coronavirus done? First of all, it has displaced people from their jobs. So there is no economic activities going on. People have been so disoriented. People have been so separated from their normal daily pursuits. Even those who are involved in Juakali, the micro enterprises, their incomes are very meager at this stage. And therefore, the income to the families, the ability to earn for the family has been completely disoriented. And therefore, we now need to put that social problem into order. In the sense that we need to work our populations to make sure that their daily livelihoods, their daily earnings are able to earn them something very useful and successful. That's one thing that we have learned. The second thing that we have learned, that you need a concerted action by both the national government and the county governments, that they should be in a state of preparedness to deal with the pandemic. And therefore, this report has given us an insight on what should be done at every time, at every stage, and at every moment in order to be able to deal with the pandemic in a much more decisive manner. Thirdly, this disease has taught us one other thing, that it's important to be able to look at our own institutions internally and be able to energize them in the way of research and development so that they can be able to produce the necessary materials that are essential and important for dealing with the pandemic. For instance, Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, has come out right on spot. It's one of our premier institutions, and I'm happy that the KEMRI has been able to give some kind of leadership within the continent of Africa in terms of research and in terms of the development of the vaccine. We already know that there is a likelihood, once the protocol aspect of it are dealt with through the ethics committee of KEMRI itself and through the National Science and Technology Council, once a green light is given, that we will be able to be part of the participants in the vaccine trial, which has been developed to be able to see whether we can be able to develop a vaccine to deal with this pandemic. I must also say at this stage that sometimes we become very skeptical about some vaccines that are being developed. I don't think we should be skeptical once our scientists are fully seized with the problem and with what I call the pathogenesis, or the development, the way the disease is developing. We now know that this is in the class of a virus. Although, as a scientist, it's just a mere protein which is coated by a film of fatty acids that behaves abnormally when we get in the cells or in the body, particularly when you inhale the droplets. They'll be able to cause a lot of damage and difficulties in the lining of the lungs, and that's why you see the first sign that they get is these coughing episodes. There have been other areas, other scientists who have suggested maybe this may be affecting the clotting mechanism of the blood, and therefore what you're beginning to see is the deposits of small little thrombi, what we call the small little, when the blood clots, it breaks down to small little pieces, what we call the thrombi or the thrombus, which is one, and the thrombi, which are many. These pieces then go and clog the blood vessels in the cells, in the lungs, and therefore they are able to cause this, what you call the distressful respiratory syndrome. You get the distress in breathing, you are not able to oxygenate your lungs appropriately and correctly, and that's why you cannot be able to survive unless you are put on a ventilator. Now, the ventilator is a very useful item. We now see that even the most advanced countries, like the United States of America, China itself, Italy, France, Britain, were running short of the ventilators, because ventilators are it's a finality, that when you reach that level, you're already in the intensive care unit, and therefore what you need to do is to be able to get general supply in high percentages of oxygen to be able to aerate the lungs so that you can get oxygen flowing in your blood vessels to be able to maintain your normal life and the breathing cycle that you go through it. Therefore, it's an important element that we need to understand. Now we know, like our institution, the Jomo Kenyatta Institute of Jomo Kenyatta Technical University of Technology, they were able to develop a module of a ventilator. We should be able to work on that basis and develop our own in-house ventilators that are usable, that can be repaired, that can be serviced within the country. We have also learned that this coronavirus creates all of us, including you, Madam Speaker, we are all wearing masks. It's not a very comfortable thing to wear masks, but it's a necessity that you must wear masks because of the mode of transmission through the droplets. And therefore, our own local tailoring shops and tailoring farms like Kitui and many others, including one of our Goose Institute of Technology, they are now able to tailor and make masks. They are also able to create sanitizers, because sanitizers is literally, it's just a spirit which with a very high level of alcohol, which is almost 70%, and all it does when you wash your hands and you sanitize yourself with the sanitizer, that sanitizer, if there are any particles of the virus on your body, on your hands, the minute they come into contact with this 70% plus spirit, they are able to clean up and denude, or what they remove the outer covering of the virus and they render it sterile. And therefore it's not able to move anywhere, literally rendering it as dead, just simply dead, and therefore cannot move forward. So when the Ministry of Health says, let's keep our hands clean, it's not for fun. When the Ministry of Health says, let's sanitize ourselves, it's not for fun. It's simply because, using the science behind it, that the minute the virus gets in touch with a sanitizer, the covering of the virus is denuded, or rather is removed, and therefore it's laid bare. The protein inside is laid bare, and on its own, without the covering of the ring, becomes very inactive. Therefore, cannot perform, cannot be able to invade, cannot be able to really multiply or multiply itself to a much higher level. So we have learned it, that we can be able to, in fact, keep it at bay, first of all, by social distancing. It's quite clear, very, very effective indeed. And by simple washing of the hands and the sanitizers, we're able to keep it at bay. You're able to cut the circle. Because we now know that within 2 weeks, if nothing, there's no transmission from one individual to another, that circle ends there, and therefore you are disease-free. And that's why the government is insisting that when they talk of 2 weeks or self-quarantine for 14 days, it's not again for fun. It's just simply to be able to cut the circle, the life cycle of the virus, so that it doesn't have another host to go moving from one host to the other host to be able to cause the mischief that is causing at the moment. One element which has stood out very clearly, and I've always said this before, that the supply of water, normal, clean drinking water, in all our areas is very critical. When I was the Minister for Technical Training and Applied Technology, Juakali, one of the things that we want to do with the World Bank was to be able to supply plentiful water, supply what we call supply of water to informal settlements. Now, when you look at the areas like Korogosho and Mukuru Kwanchenga and Kibera, these are densely populated areas, and therefore they need generous supply of water for these areas to be able to survive. But if you are not able to supply water, then you render the hygienic conditions that you are trying to prescribe to people useless. And that's why we're saying it's important that we are able to ensure that the general supply of water to all these areas. Fortunately, water is a devolved function now. It's devolved in a manner that is acceptable. And that's why we're saying all our county governments should make it their business to be able to provide generous budgets for the supply of clean water to all the populations, whether in the urban center or in the rural setting, so that Kenyans don't have to struggle trekking miles and miles away or trying to struggle to get water, first of all, for their own domestic use and also for their. So if there's anything we've learned from this coronavirus, is the ability to prioritize the question of water supply to all these situations, because then water becomes a major basic element that is available to the populations to deal with this situation. And then, Madam Speaker, we have also learned that you must be able to give what you call the stimulus package to the populations of Kenyans who are whose livelihoods are dependent upon their daily earnings. You know, this is a cash economy program we have in this country. So many Juakalis are depending on their day-to-day earnings from their small little operations. And therefore, we must have socio-economic stimulus to package and protect these Juakali people from that way. So this report, which eventually leads into a bill, will be able to enrich the bill. And what I expect in the bill is, first of all, how the country reacts to be able to deal with a pandemic, whether it's a coronavirus or any other pandemic that may come around.